June can be one of the most important months in crypto history because right now multiple different systems are starting to line up at the same time. Possible crypto regulation, a major Bitcoin dominance crossover that happens before almost every altcoin season, the business cycle moving back into expansion territory, and potentially Bitcoin bottoming out at the same time. Now, none of this guarantees anything. But what's interesting is when completely different indicators start pointing in the same direction simultaneously. And that's what this video is about. No hype, no certainty, just actual facts. And the theories that most people are discussing online and why this time period could be the most important time period in Bitcoin history. And way more important than most people realize. Now, before I get started, this is not financial advice. This is just my personal opinion, my interpretation of the charts, and my opinion about other people's theories being discussed online and on YouTube. So first, let's discuss the Clarity Act. Right now, there is a major push to try to get this passed before governments officially leave for vacation around June or July. And this is where I think there's a lot of confusion online. Some YouTubers are talking about this like these coins are officially becoming commodities, but that's not actually the full truth. The actual bill is more complicated than that. The Clarity Act is designed to create a regulatory framework for digital assets and clarify how oversight between the SEC and CFTC would work. Oh wow, that's a tongue twister. The Clarity Act is designed for that. So the conversation online is less about these coins are guaranteed commodities and more about if the framework passes, could certain altcoins benefit from being viewed more like digital commodities instead of securities. That's a much more accurate way to describe it. Because I don't want to present speculation as fact. But at the same time, markets move based on expectations and narratives before things become fully official. And if the market starts believing regulatory risk is decreasing for some altcoins, that could change behavior. You've got coins like Solana, XRP, Cardano, Avalanche, Chainlink, Litecoin, Hedera, Dogecoin, and many more. These are all some of the names people online keep discussing in relation to the clarity conversation. But obviously, nothing is guaranteed. The government could delay things, the bill could change, the market could ignore it completely, or crypto could still lower anyways. But timing matters, because while this conversation is happening, there's also something interesting happening with the Bitcoin dominance. These lines are getting very close to crossing on the daily chart. And historically, when these lines crossed in previous cycles, that was around the beginning of altcoin season. And as you can see here, they are about to cross on June 9th, which is critical with the Clarity Act. And you can see back January 7th, 2021, where it was the beginning of the altcoin season, and that lasted about 6 months, 6 to 8 months, and that was the beginning of the altcoin season. That's when those lines crossed. And you can see back here, December 10th, 2015, where the dominance of Bitcoin started to drop, and that was the mark of the start of the first altcoin season. And that one lasted more than a year. You can see it started right up here where these lines crossed. Very interesting. Now you can see on the monthly chart the different times when altcoin season started, and you can see that those lines could cross in June and the start of the altcoin season. Now again, just because something has happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen again. And I want to be very clear about that. Charts are probabilities, not guarantees. But what I pay attention to is when multiple indicated systems start aligning together. And right now, that's what's interesting to me. Potential regular clarity, potential Bitcoin dominance crossover, and then there is the business cycle. The business cycle. This is honestly one of the most interesting charts to me because when you look at previous major crypto bull markets, the expansion zone matters. Okay? The business cycle usually moves about above the 50 line, and that expansion zone really matters. Liquidity expands, risk appetite increases, and historically, those were the environments where altcoins performed much better. But during the last cycle, the business cycle never really confirmed the same way. It never properly moved above the expansion line like previous cycles did, which is why some people argue the last run wasn't actually a traditional full expansion cycle. But now, it looks possible that the business cycle may actually start moving above the 50 line again. And if that happens, while Bitcoin dominance weakens, altcoins gain clearer regulation framework and Bitcoin stabilizes, that creates a very different environment that may than we saw before. And honestly, this is where I think a lot of people miss the bigger picture. Most people only focus on price, but markets are driven by liquidity, psychology, regulation, narrative, and incentives. And when multiple systems begin shifting at the same time, that's usually when moves happen. And this only raises another interesting question. If all these things actually start aligning, which crypto benefits the most? Because a lot of people automatically think altcoin season means random small coins explode. But historically, capital usually rotates in stages. First Bitcoin, then Ethereum, then larger altcoins. And then eventually more speculative assets matter. And honestly, Ethereum may be one of the most interesting assets to watch if Bitcoin dominance starts weakening, because Ethereum already has one of the largest market cap shares outside of Bitcoin. It's heavily tied to stablecoin, tokenization, DeFi, and institutional crypto infrastructure. And compared to smaller altcoins, Ethereum is also viewed by many investors as one of the more established crypto assets. So if Bitcoin dominance weakens, liquidity expands, regulatory clarity improves, and risk appetite increases, Ethereum could potentially become one of the biggest beneficiaries of that shift. Now again, I'm not saying Ethereum is guaranteed to outperform, and I'm not definitely saying smaller altcoins can't outperform Ethereum later, but if capital rotates begin again, Ethereum could end up becoming one of the main bridges between Bitcoin and the broader market. Now let's talk about Bitcoin. Because a lot of people still think Bitcoin bottomed later in the year around October, and honestly it's still possible. Benjamin Cohen also talks about possible weakness around June or October. But even if he doesn't know exactly when the bottom happened, no one actually does. And that sometimes I think people forget online. The internet rewards confidence more than accuracy. The people who sound the most certain usually get the most attention. But when I look at the monthly Bitcoin chart, it actually looks possible that the bottom may already be in, or at least that we're much closer than people think. And maybe June becomes more of a retest instead of a total collapse. That's important because markets usually move before the news becomes obvious. By the time the average person feels safe buying crypto again, a lot of the move is already gone. But looking at this chart right here, you can see in the past where the red line, where the yellow line is, you can see how that lines up at the bottom of Bitcoin's bear markets. And with the MACD, the lighter red part, we're on the second one, and that was basically at the bottom of Bitcoin's market. And if you go to the bottom indicator, you can see where the red line starts to go up, and right now it's currently going up. So the bottom happened at that time. So, which hints the bottom could be already in. But, humans, yeah, so basically, but by the time the average person feels safe buying crypto again, a lot of the move has already gone. And this is where psychology becomes really important, because most people emotionally buy after confirmation, not before it. That's why markets are so difficult. Human nature naturally wants certainty before taking action, but markets often reward positions before certainty exists. But you can see almost every cycle in the past did bottom out when that red line started to move up on that bottom indicator. And with the MACD, where the second lighter line was, that's where the line is, and that's basically where the bottom has been in the past. Now again, I'm not saying altcoin season is guaranteed. And I'm definitely not saying Bitcoin can't go down lower. And everybody knows indicators are not perfect. But what I am saying, it is interesting that multiple different systems are aligning at the same time. Especially regulation, liquidity, business cycle, business dominance structure, and sentiment. Because crypto is heavily driven by narratives and psychology. And if narratives suddenly shift from crypto's under attack to crypto being legitimate, that can change behavior very quickly. And behavior is actually what moves markets. Not headlines, not emotion, behavior. So personally, I think June could be one of the most important months of this cycle. Either these signals fail, the market rolls over, and everyone gets trapped again, or this becomes the early stages of something much bigger starting underneath the surface, while most people are distracted by fear and uncertainty. And honestly, that's how most major moves start and begin. Hopefully you enjoyed this. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And have a good rest of the day. Do your own research.